Previously on the Beam Chronicles.
But while Kovorski raised me personally, treated me as his protege, successor, and true son, Phil spent a paltry amount of time in our father's presence. He was raised by a surrogate family as an infant and returned to us once he reached schooling age, till such time that Phil turned 14 and was given to Howie as an appeasement gift. During our brief skirmish with Queztopo, he was unable to use his telekinesis on me. I am not sure how I triggered it. I believe perhaps it was a reflexive response to my impending doom.
Kovorski must have built it into you, like you said, a reflex or something.
Kovorski's notes?
Anyway, so I started looking through his notes, but I couldn't read them. Nobody could translate. Nobody knew what the hell he was doing. It's gibberish.
If he engineered me with this response feasibly, you could have it as well, to some extent.
Don't know never fought Jackson Teak.
She set her hand over his skull and undrooped it, blood spurting from his neck. You could not have spoken to my father. My father is a prisoner of Beam. He dwells in the oubliette of headquarters.
He's not in there anymore.
Howie insists I get through this entire catalog, though.
Why is this so important?
New protocol for incoming Ava agents. I think he's checking for holes in his coverage, like if there's some substance that the T-Kick interaction doesn't work on. Probably wants it on record up here. I guess in case Jackson goes to knockdown, we have to shoot him with something. This will tell us what our best option is.
Yeah, if we ever manage to leaf through the week of data to figure it out.
These are the Beam Chronicles, with your host, MJ Dooney. Book 3, Cataclysm. Chapter 15, Cidney Kovorski.
By the second day of Queztopo's hiatus from his conquest, the evacuation hit a wall. It was predictable, just like Mathis had mentioned before we started. For as large as Beam's underground infrastructure was, there was limited space in which to fit people. And once we had filled it, the delightful distraction and false feeling of usefulness the evacuation had granted us vanished in a flash. It was estimated we had buried 50 million people of the 100 million left in the country, which at its face seemed commendable, but then, if I thought about it, half of the population was still out in the open, waiting for Queztopo to finish his coffee break and proceed with annihilation, not to mention the billions of people overseas without Beam to protect them. And for these people, we offered no comfort, no answer, no chance. We still could not stop Queztopo without killing Jackson, and we still refused to kill Jackson. So we were once again reduced to spinning our wheels, twiddling our thumbs, and waiting for some lucky break. And for all our might, for all the influence of our bureau and its various departments and its various powerful characters, the only real potential sources for that luck were two of our frailest men, Phil Kovorski and Enzo Skelton. Their investigation into my immunity to the T-Kick interaction, and any other potential gap we could exploit. It all had come down to them. The only room in the entire world from which a solution to the apocalypse could possibly come was my brother's lab on the top floor of HQ. For obvious reasons, that was essentially where all of us were spending our time.
Sid, thank you.
Phil gasped as Charlie and I stepped from the elevator into his lab.
They gotta go, bro. You gotta get them out of here. I can't stand it.
I glanced around the room, normally so barren and private, now a rowdy party of Equalizer veterans. Without the evacuation, Mike Mathis, Cal Sparks, Lane Rector, Tim Sturgis, and Murphy had nowhere else they needed to be, and so as people who had devoted their lives to action, they clustered around the only route of productive action left in the world. I am sorry, Phil, but where can they go instead?
Literally anywhere. Dude, you have to understand that I can't do work in here with the Psycho Twins breaking all my shit and Rector just staring at me. Murphy occasionally helps out. Sturgis is nothing. I guess they can stay, but I'd really rather all of them
What's
just...
the progress? Did anything come from Leper's blood?
Charlie interrupted with surprising calm. She never had a particularly high tolerance for complaining, especially not now. Phil must have recognized how inappropriate the timing was, and he physically bit his own tongue before continuing.
No, we don't think Micah has the immunity. We've analyzed it 1,000 times. It all looks pretty human.
Another useless dead end.
But
Enzo spun around in his computer chair, glancing up from the magnifier fixed over a particular block of Kovorski text.
we have made a small breakthrough, now that you mention it.
Yeah, real small.
Sparks drawled, balancing an electromace on his index finger. Madman was doing the same, and all the while maneuvering toward his friend to shove him and alter his balance. It was no doubt a competition for who could keep it up longer.
Well, yes, I suppose real small.
Skelton sheepishly pushed his sunglasses further up his nose, covering his eyes more entirely.
But we did find a lengthy set of pages here in the notes concerning you and the TI. I can state with high confidence that the motivator, the catalyst, if you will, for whatever it is that grants you immunity is...
He paused to drum up suspense, clenching his fists and shaking slightly.
Intent.
Nobody made a sound for a brief moment until Mathis stumbled sideways into a table with a crash, all in an attempt to win his contest with Sparks to no avail. And as the electromace crashed into the ground, shattering on impact, Phil sighed, cow-snickered, and laying backhanded Madman across the head, who yelped.
Yo!
I was already starting to see how challenging it would be to work in these conditions. Charlie refocused us.
Intent for what?
We're actually still working on that bit.
Possibly intent to harm. I noticed both times that I felt a cold rush prior to slipping his telekinetic grip. I had a very real urge to hurt him. I caught Charlie's downtrodden frown in my peripheral vision and quickly amended to my statement. Or at least just to pin him.
Intent to harm.
Fly spun back around, leaned over the manuscript, peering into the magnifier and following the notes with his finger.
I could see that, yes, very feasible. I'll try to corroborate it with a few other passages before we officially declare it so.
So basically,
Murphy impatiently said.
the two of you have just determined that Dr. Kovorski wrote down exactly what Cidney told you was happening 4 fucking days ago.
I mean, yes, but double confirmation from distinct sources is a vital part of the scientific process, and...
There is something else.
Phil cut off his partner to suggest a slightly more robust sliver of hope for us to cling to.
Enzo discovered it a bit ago, another passage independent of the Cidney stuff. Shares some similar looking, I don't know, words and phrases, I guess, if you can even call them words, symbols. It's about the synthesis of some internal Cidney material, how to construct it, the process for doing so outside of Cid's body, this TI-proof chemical.
He paused for a brief second, swiped his hands through his hair, and interlaced them behind his head.
Actually, sidebar, could we just get a name for it real quick? I'm sick of describing it every time I want to reference it, and I'm too busy to have made something up.
Ajax?
Mathis suggested almost immediately upon request.
Get it, like Auntie Jackson?
Phil stammered, scratching the back of his head.
Does anyone got anything that's like, I don't know, better?
Oh, how about Queztopo?
Madman blurted out and Cal spun away to chuckle.
Ajax.
Lane firmly assisted.
Stick with Ajax, trust me. He's already sliding down the stupidity slope and it's miles better than Queztopo.
Fine.
Phil was obviously too preoccupied to insist on a less juvenile name.
Whatever, Ajax. We suspect this passage we found is some sort of formula, a step-by-step process for generating Ajax outside of Cidney.
No, that is not... That is what we think it is about. But there is insufficient information to make a certain conclusion at this juncture.
What's it say?
Charlie asked, largely ignoring Skelton's foolish plea for academic integrity in research.
What do we have to do to make it?
The bits I can glean I can't really explain, not efficiently anyway. Hypernuclei, strange matter, all stuff that theoretically exists, you know, but it's just like all Kovorski things, it doesn't make much sense, physically speaking, to try to make it. Based on what we think we've deciphered, it should be completely unstable for any more than a few picoseconds, but I mean, we know Cidney manages to hold it together. There's some diagrams, I guess, calculations I can barely follow, but we're still missing some important pieces. I know I can provide the energy required to do it all, but it's like a super complex, dangerous, fragile, explosive recipe written in a different language. I tried a few times to follow it, but it's not like I know exactly what I'm doing, and I'm scared to actually commit to trying. What if I blow up my lab and it's not even the right procedure in the first place? I mean...
He took a break from speaking, pounding on his forehead and groaning softly.
All right, here's the thing. And you know I wouldn't ask this until I got to the end of my rope, but maybe with profit out of commission, it's possible if we could talk to Kovorski.
You can't.
It would help me a ton, Charlie.
I know, but we don't know where he is.
You gotta be shitting me.
Unfortunately not, brother. He apparently escaped the oubliette months ago. Queztopo managed to locate him, and they had some sort of discussion. By now, he could be anywhere in the world. Phil buttered his lips, flinging himself into the nearest chair in defeat. He admitted this defeat straight up.
I got nothing, guys. Jack shit. I'm so sorry. Without Dr. K, I'm seriously out of my league here, especially on this timeline. I don't know what I could.
My brother seemed exasperated to the verge of breakdown. It was enough to put a hush over the room, draw the attention of everyone. I had yet to even consider the emotional toll working around the clock on such an impossible task would have on him. Clearly, Phil was mentally in horrible shape.
I'm not smart enough, Sid. I'm just not smart enough.
Phil, it is not your fault.
I could start looking for him. Kovorski, I mean, group around the world, maybe his favorite areas and six around. I don't know if I could pick him out that quickly, but it's better than doing nothing.
That assumes he would bother to help us anyway.
Is there anything else that could help you, Green? Short of finding Kovorski himself, is there anything else that could get you closer to piecing it together?
Perhaps if I could see it, if I could image it with the technology developed in my old eyes, get the shape and the basic properties, if we had a sample of it, however small, it would help the process along immensely. Right, Phil?
Yeah, I guess he's right.
Phil sighed, palming his forehead and squeezing his eyes.
Something in fucking English, something concrete and obvious and certain would be forever ahead of where we are now. I'm sure I could at least try to replicate it if I could get a fly scan.
All right, good. Let's find some. He had samples of stuff, right?
Lane asked, stepping closer to our congregation to contribute, with Matheson Sparks in tow, Sturgis disinterestedly fiddling with his phone in the corner.
When we busted Dr. K, we went through his labs and confiscated all the evidence we could find, shot in the dark, but it's not nothing. Maybe he just happened to have a chunk of it in there.
Come think of it, we done packed up a whole room full of rocks and shit.
Mathis recalled, wobbling his index finger. He belted Cal in the chest with slightly exaggerated gusto.
Remember that?
I do.
Sparks wheezed, rubbing his sternum.
It was a real show. Hazmat and everything, because RT was afraid it was all radioactive or explosive or whatever.
Yeah, none of that stuff is gonna be what we're looking for.
Phil confidently denied them.
Trust me, that's a dead end.
How are you so certain? I asked.
Because I put Kovorski's menagerie into the entrance catalog on Prophet's request.
The what now?
When Jackson and Sid joined Ava,
Phil explained with a twinge of blatant impatience.
RT had to run a gamut of tests on them just to establish a firm understanding of what they were and weren't capable of. Amongst those tests was a catalog of materials we had them use their abilities on. Jackson crushed things with telekinesis, Sid melted them with K-Pack. That catalog contained samples of thousands of different materials, including but not limiting to all the stuff we confiscated from Dr. K. If this stuff, this TI immune stuff...
Ajax!
Madman petulantly insisted on his stupid name.
Fine, fucking Ajax, whatever.
Phil snapped. Mathis flinched.
If there were a sample of Ajax in the material we confiscated from Kovorski, I already would have found it. Jackson went through the whole catalog and pulverized everything we put in front of him. I've poured through the data like 60 times in the past few days. There's absolutely no gap. He crushed all of it. Dead end.
Can we see it? The data or whatever on him crushing stuff?
Cal smoothly requested.
What, you don't believe me? You think you're gonna notice something that I didn't?
Don't reckon I appreciate the tone nor the implications, son.
It was the closest to agitated I had ever heard him approach, but even still, it was quite even-keeled.
Perhaps he's right, Phil. A fresh set of eyes.
Enzo sheepishly said.
Not that you missed anything or that you're incompetent in the slightest, but you are thoroughly sleep-deprived
You're
and...
shitting me, right? I'm not a fucking freshman. I think I know how to analyze a basic set of data without making a mistake, fly.
He hissed, and Enzo winced upon hearing his old derogatory pseudonym used so icily. I frowned and nudged Phil with my elbow, who turned his furious, sagging, bloodshot eyes, surrounded with black circles, up to mine. Gradually, the rage melted away, leaving behind that faint residue of guilt and apologetic remorse, but eclipsing all else, utter fatigue. It was as if he were too weary to commit to any emotions anymore. My stomach turned, thinking of all the opportunities I had been granting to every other member of our cast, allowing them to take a break, but never my own brother. How careless of me, and how heroic of him for diligently working through it. I soothingly rested my hand on his shoulder, and he stretched his own hand across his body to place it on top of mine, taking a deep breath.
Shit, buddy, I don't even know where that came from. I'm sorry, Enzo, for real.
It's fine, my friend. Merely stress, think nothing of it.
Cal, Mike, you two guys, I didn't mean to disrespect. I'm just totally spent right now. Caffeine can only do so much, you know?
Sparks merely nodded. Madman, winked. Please show us the information, brother. Just so we can say that we saw it. And then go take a nap. A substantial nap. We can hold down the fort without you.
Yeah, right, okay, good idea. Here.
He got up from his seat and waved his hand for us to follow him over to one of the garage doors and the outer rim of his laboratory. He pressed the red button beside it to open it up, then punched something into the keyboard to bring a screen down from the ceiling. Onto it was projected a double-column list of numbers, and beside that, a few graphical representations of the data.
So, the top line is his output, how hard he squeezed this stuff. The bottom line is the size of the stuff after he did it. So how much the TI actually affected the samples. As you can see, when one goes up, the other goes down. All across the board. He squeezes harder, it crushes smaller, and it's fairly consistent from substance to substance.
He shuffled into the adjacent garage compartment, and the lights turned on as he entered, revealing a few tall cabinets of drawers.
And here are the remnants, what was left after he crushed the samples, just in case I wanted to confirm something that looked abnormal, but I already did so for anything even slightly abnormal.
Hey, Phil, for the less,
Murphy cut in, rustling his mustache.
technological and scientifically inclined of us, the, spikes in the top line when it, goes up a lot.
Right, okay, so when the top line spikes like that, it means he squeezed super hard. This one here is for a sneeze, for example. But like I was saying, when he sneezes, he teaks it harder, the sample gets destroyed more emphatically, and the remnants are smaller.
He pulled out the corresponding drawer, sifted through it, lifted out the tiny chunk of metal from it, and held it up between his fingers.
See what I mean? Big squeeze, less stuff. These are the ones I triple-checked, the spikes, and all of them follow that pattern. Therefore, in conclusion, all the samples are things he can manipulate, which means Ajax isn't in here.
Wait. Go to the Kovorski stuff.
Charlie anxiously chewed a lock, fingering the rock hanging from her neck.
The stuff that we confiscated from Dr. K, where's that on the graph? Where did it show up in the catalog?
I put all of it in the end because I was scared it would blow up the world or something. Here.
He stepped out of the garage and typed something on the keyboard, zooming into the portion of the data set corresponding to Kovorski's synthetics. Both lines ran across the screen unassumingly, save one monumental and conspicuous spike, the largest one of the entire set. What occurred there?
Actually, I don't know.
Phil grumbled, pouring through the correlated notes.
I didn't give him that one.
What do you mean?
I gave it to him.
Charlie softly admitted, eyes glazed over and strangely distant.
Phil, did you check that sample, the remnants?
Yeah, duh, but look.
He pointed to the line below, indicating the size of the sample post-crush.
He annihilated it. It's absolutely nothing.
And he reached toward the cabinet and pulled out the proper drawer, tipping it upside down and shaking it to demonstrate how completely he had destroyed that particular sample.
No, Phil. Oh my God, Phil, he didn't. He didn't annihilate it. You gave it to me. You gave it to me. Remember?
She tipped her head down, gesturing at the small sample from this very experiment that she was wearing around her neck. And Phil's eyes grew so wide they nearly popped from the sockets. Charlie looked up at me, and the faintest glimmer of hope danced across her face as it struck me what was actually happening. There was the slightest chance we had a seed of the first step toward the answer to our colossal problem. The Boner Rock. Brother, you gave it to her.
Motherfucking shitfuck. Holy fucking fuck. He didn't annihilate it. I gave it to you. I gave it to you, Charlie.
But Phil, he did crush it. I remember it popped. It was really loud, and I checked the manifest before I asked you for it to make sure it wasn't toxic or anything. It's just tungsten.
No, I just covered it in tungsten, Charlie.
Phil was quivering, absent-mindedly rubbing the top of his head.
I covered it in tungsten because it was too small. The samples all had to be the same size for the experiment to be robust, but we didn't have much of the Kovorski stuff. I didn't want to use it all up, so I just wrapped it in tungsten to bring it up to size. That's what he crushed. He crushed the tungsten coat, and based on his output, he probably crushed it to the point where there isn't any left. But if it's really Ajax, it could still be in there, under the tungsten, and holy shit, we gotta test it. The catch!
He bustled out of the room across the lab to another garage. I followed closely behind while Charlie just grouped over as Phil lifted the second door, revealing the catch, his oldest device operating on the Tikik interaction, the one just a few days ago we used for an impromptu football competition.
Anybody know what the hell is happening?
Lane questioned under her breath as the rest of our crew raced after us and Phil whipped off his shirt, opening a sunroof, plugging the cord into his belly button and powering up the device.
No, but don't interrupt them, Lane. They'll explain in a minute.
Charlie tugged the rock off her neck, took it off the string, and clutched it for a moment longer, glancing from me to Phil and back to me. I nodded to her, and with a hefty exhale, she tossed her 49th bus gift to Jackson into the mouth of the fired-up catch. We watched with bated breath as the stone soared through the air into the acrylic tube designed to suspend whatever was inside of it. But the rock fell. All the way to the bottom, the rock fell with an audible, triumphant plunk. That glorious, brilliant plunk reverberated around the room, otherwise silent beyond the constant hum of the catch, pumping out Jacksons at a rate fast enough and at an energy high enough to keep tons hovering. But this rock, this little rock, stood still at the bottom. The Tikik interaction did not affect the Boner rock.
You gave it to me, Phil.
Charlie broke the silence, smiled, then grinned, then bounced up and down excitedly.
You fucking gave it to me!
I gave it to you!
He howled, shaking in unbridled fervor, his fist clenched almost as tightly as his bared, smiling teeth.
I fucking gave it to you!
All right, so
Lane lifted her hands up, interrupting our ecstatic revelation.
now can I ask, are we all just crazy now, or is somebody gonna explain what all this is about?
The Boner rock was the key all along, Lane! I shouted, grasping her by the shoulders and shaking her mightily. The Boner rock was the key all along!
Oh, yeah, obviously. Thanks for clarifying.
Boner rock.
Mathis leaned over and set the sparks behind his hand.
I knew it.
You don't even know what the tiddly fuck it means, you nut job.
Wait. You mean to say that you're telling me their little I love you rock is made of Ajax? She had it hanging around her neck all this time? He had it hanging around his neck before that?
Apparently, I absentmindedly gave it to her 2 years ago without really thinking, as a present to Jackson to commemorate their 50th bust.
49.
49, sure. And I'm a total fucking moron for not writing that shit down, but who gives a fuck about that right now? We got it, baby, we got the Ajax!
Wait, if Jackson's been wearing it all this time, how did he, fly or whatever? Why didn't it weigh him down or, gobble up his Jacksons and cancel out the telekinesis?
It doesn't work that way.
Enzo was the next to adapt our unbridled eager joy, stepping in to explain.
The TI immune material, what we are calling Ajax, it does not disable the TI. It would not weigh him down, as you suggest, nor switch off his telekinesis. Rather, it just cancels out any Jacksons that attempt to pass through and manipulate it in and of itself. Think of it as a non-permissible barrier for the force carrier particles. They enter, have no impact, and don't leave. He could still fly, you see, even with it hanging around his neck, the same way you could glue a piece of iron to a piece of plastic and then lift both with a magnet. The Jacksons he only used on his body would lift his body and then drag the Ajax along with it. But if he were ever to attempt to manipulate the rock itself, the effort would be fruitless. The TI does not affect it. The experiment we just performed confirms it. We have discovered Ajax!
It took a few additional minutes after Enzo's proclamation for the group to relax, quit chattering and hugging each other and peering into the catch, each confirming with their own eyes that it was actually true. Staring at that rock sitting motionless on the bottom felt strangely like we had already won the war, probably because it was the closest we had gotten to a victory, ever since Rick Fisher killed Maria. Truthfully, there was much more work to be done, and we all knew it was a minuscule baby step at best. We still had to thwart Queztopo, pin him without killing him, wrangle the savage, malevolent beast into a cage. We did not even know yet if Ajax could be synthesized quickly enough to build that cage, nor if it could be synthesized at all, nor how to synthesize it, assuming we could. All we had was a rock. Still, when your sequence of defeats had run as long as ours had, you celebrate any marginal win. This rock was as marginal of a win as I could have constructed, but I shared the group's mirth nonetheless. Phil spoke next.
Enzo, you got your scope up here, or do we leave it in your lockup?
By this point, you could practically see the fire in Phil's eyes, his visible thirst for scientific inquiry.
Door 5, I believe.
Enzo pondered aloud, extending a finger across the lab toward the appropriate garage.
Good, let's take some images.
Phil proclaimed, cracking his knuckles as he strode alongside Enzo toward the indicated door. He turned his head over his shoulder.
Charlie, you think you can get that rock out of the catch and ungroup just the tungsten coating?
She did the first part without hesitation, but once she met us across the lab holding her stone in the tips of her fingers and spinning it before her nose, she seemed rather conflicted.
Wait. You want me to break it? Do I have to take the top layer off?
Oh, for Christ's sake.
The disgruntled exclamation of Tim Sturgis rang out from the back of the group. Murphy and I snarled at him while Cal threateningly wrapped an arm over his shoulder, and Mathis fingered the triggers of the pistols sitting on his hips.
Phil, Look, I know it's just a rock, and if you have to destroy it, I get it, and I feel like such an idiot for asking, but could we maybe try not to at first?
No.
No, we can't try, or...
No, I'm not gonna destroy it, Charlie. I wouldn't dream of it. I'm just measuring it. Imaging. We just gotta chip off the tungsten, right, Enzo?
Yes, obviously. And don't worry for a moment. We know it's precious to you.
All right, but if crushing it helps the process...
Sturgis butted in, peeling Tal's arm off of him and stepping through the group.
If pulverizing it to powder means we get a leg up on Queztopo, you really need to go ahead and do that.
Your lips are doing that annoying thing where they move again, Sturgis.
He firmly shook his head.
Nope. Sorry, drawing a line. I've kept quiet through some ridiculous shit the past few days, but this I won't sit by and allow.
I noticed Charlie's chest heave out in unison with mine, both of us fully prepared to rip Sturgis apart, but before either of us got a chance, Phil cut in with a scoff.
Yeah, like you have any capability to allow someone to do or not do anything, you dumbass.
Look, we're not ending the world over a fucking rock.
Again, I prepped myself to shut him down, and again, Phil beat me to the punch.
You know what, Tim? Do me a favor, shut your ugly newbie mouth and don't open it again until you get your priorities straight.
I'm pretty damn sure I'm the only person in this room who has his priorities straight. I don't care how sentimental they are. I don't care what memories are attached to them. Rocks don't trump the fate of the whole world.
It's not about the rock, you fucking twat. It's...
He faltered off, glanced toward me, then Charlie.
No, honestly, you know what? Fuck it. Because seriously, what am I even doing talking to a loveless cuss like you about this? You couldn't possibly begin to understand what this is like for us. What we've been going through the last few days, and on top of that, you couldn't possibly begin to understand how far I'd go to take care of my family and save them from a fraction of the agony they've been forced to deal with for years.
Phil.
Don't be so dramatic.
No, see, you don't get it, Sturgis. And nothing I can say will fix that, plus I'm too tired to try. So you know what? Here is the only format you'll ever push through your thick Neanderthal skull. This rock trumps the whole world. You don't like it? Get the fuck out of my lab.
Phil?
This time she spoke loud enough for him to hear, and he turned his head to face her.
The next time I'm a dick to you, remind me that I like you now. Remind me that right now in this moment I realized that I like you.
He laughed aloud, sheepishly glancing at the ground, then back up.
Don't make it weird, all right? Just give me the boulder rock. Let me save our boy. I won't even scratch it, I promise.
There was nary a fragment of mistrust in her firm, outreached arm, still coated in zigzaggy scars from the battles of yesteryear as she extended the rock to him, and before Phil could snatch it from her hand, a metallic powder, too fine to really be visible for longer than a blink, puffed off the rock in all directions as she ungrouped the tungsten coating. What remained in her hand was a gem, essentially the size and shape as before, but crystalline, and a dark blood-like brooding purple so intriguing and strange. I let out a faint gasp.
Holy shit.
It startled even Charlie.
This is beautiful. Sentimentality and all aside, I apparently should have done that much a while ago.
They held frozen in time for a while, Charlie holding her palm up to him, with the stone resting in it, Phil hypnotized by its bizarre, breathtaking, yet somehow wicked hue.
Phil?
She eventually asked, tossing it lightly and flinching through an uncommitted smile. He snatched her wrist, and she allowed him to, likely due to the stupor in his face.
Shit on a brick. You gotta be joking me.
It was then I recognized the distance in his gaze, the way he looked not at the gem in Charlie's palm, but through it, beyond it, to something on the other side, his desk, it seemed, and the pages of Kovorski's notes resting upon them. His eyes narrowed into a squint, then widened so large they took over his face. He licked his top lip. Then his mouth fell open, emitting a burst of air somewhere between laughter and gasping. Obviously, none of us were in the room anymore, not from his perspective. He grabbed the Ajax away from Charlie and sprinted, maybe even leapt across the lab, physically collapsing onto the desk, knocking papers off either side of it, sprawling across our father's notes, and whipping the boner rock up to his eyes like a monocle, peering through it. As he began his frenzied laugh, I immediately feared that he had snapped, that his mind was lost, possibly the final result of sleep deprivation.
When it rains and pours, baby!
He maniacally exclaimed, lifting his clenched fist into the air. Yes, surely he was Matt now, and I was considering how comfortable I was with trusting Enzo Skelton to run the operation while Phil recovered his sanity as my brother pored over the notes, cackling like a fool, utilizing the boner rock as a lens through which to read.
Gone bananas. Seen it too many times.
Yeah, in a mirror.
It's Cidney!
Phil called out to me just as I was about to go to him anyway.
I need you, big guy!
I know, brother. And I am here for you. We will get you through this together.
No, like, I just need you to read this shit. I can't read Polish.
You... what? When I approached him from behind, he hoisted the rock above his head, pinched between his index finger and thumb, and I leaned over to look through it. To my unfathomable surprise, there on the page filled with gibberish-coded nothingness, appeared a note. My father's handwriting. I recognized it immediately, clear as day in perfect Polish, but only visible when the paper was viewed through this gem. My heart was fluttering in my throat, and I thought it would obstruct me from translating aloud, but I pressed through regardless. My dearest son, I read, and a massive pit plopped into my stomach. This was the closest I had gotten to communicating with my father since the day that he let my sister die while I sat powerless and watched. It was an impossible, paradoxical mix of hot and cold all across my shaking body. I plunged ahead. I hope this message finds you before it finds someone more wicked. And I hope it finds you before the demon in Jackson Teague destroys the world.
Wait, how the hell did he know Jackson's name? We busted Kovorski days before we found Jackson. They never even met.
Think about when he wrote this. It was before any of us knew about Jackson, much less Queztopo.
The mystery of my father's true nature grew cloudier, but we wordlessly agreed to table this in pursuit of more attainable and important gains. I continued my translation. But hopefully, smart as you are, you understand how important it was to keep this hidden. I will save you the trouble of searching. The next few pages are the only ones which contain such a secret message. No doubt, given your meticulous nature and unquenchable thirst for knowledge, you will still examine all of them. I found it odd. I did not consider myself to be overwhelmingly meticulous nor thirsty for knowledge, and it gave me a sudden, peculiar sense of relief when I at last deduced I was not the son he was addressing.
Cidney, wait, is he talking to me?
I smiled at him and nodded, trying to gauge my brother's response to this revelation, some peculiar mix of sheer disbelief and guilty pleasure, as if he had forever longed for the acknowledgement this letter represented, but resented himself for doing so. I granted him the privacy to grapple with this dichotomy, turned back to the note. You will find on the following pages the procedure I used to construct the lens you are using to read this. I explained this procedure in illicit detail. It is a complicated endeavor, and I wish I could be there to help you through it, but I have little doubt in your ability to piece it together on your own. Hopefully it is a sunny day. You will require much energy. The next bit was smudged, blurred slightly. I pulled the paper closer to myself to make out the words upon it. Also, it was never said. And the medium could be no less appropriate, but I will say it now because I fear we may never get the chance to speak in person. Perhaps it is my only opportunity to tell you, and I desperately want you to know I am... I faltered off, stunned by the uncharacteristic tone of Kovorski's message. I am so proud of you, my brilliant little boy. A pair of tears crept over my eyelids, fell onto the paper, and thus contributed further to the smudging on this page. I pulled it away from me, considering the odd chemical effects my tears tended to have, and looked up at Phil, himself wiping off his cheeks. Never before this moment had Kovorski shown any level of interest in my brother beyond using him as a bargaining chip with Beam years ago. Now he showed the most powerful interest, pride. And I still hated the man for what he had done to me in my tortured past, for what he had done to my little sister, but for this sweet sentiment, for these kind words, delivered precisely when Phil needed them most. I allowed the hatred to ease, if only a little. The longer we went on, the more difficult I found it to clutch to any of my resentments. Signed, Father. I finished bluntly, pressing the page back on top of the stack beside Phil and setting the boner rock atop. The room was so still I could hear my own pulse, but all of us were waiting for Phil to break the silence.
Fucking asshole. Writes me a secret love note, can't even put that in English, right?
I pulled him out of his chair, wrapping my brother up in an embrace he surely would have described as too tight, or the moment not so emotional. Instead, he just hugged me back. Phil, I eventually said when our hug ceased, about that nap. And as he pulled away, he grinned at me, a revitalized energy burning in his eyes.
I couldn't possibly sleep at a time like this, Sid. I got a lot of work to do if we're gonna save the world.
Thank you for listening to the Beam Chronicles, a fiction podcast written and produced by me, MJ Dooney. You can find the show on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Twitter. I would love a rating on Spotify and or Apple Podcasts if you haven't yet. And you can always email me, beamchronicles@gmail.com, or send me a donation on Buy Me a Coffee by clicking Support the Show in the episode description. Busy time of year, but I promised myself at least one more before 2026, and I got that done. Also, I don't usually do this, but I wanted to talk about the story itself for a second. I assume most people click away once the music gets louder and ignore this part because low-key that's what I do when I listen to podcasts. But maybe this will intrigue some of you, so I'm going to say it. Why not? My show, right? The part of this show that slows me down the most is the previously on the Beam Chronicles bit. It's to the point now where I often forget when I said things, and finding concise expressions of stuff I want to remind people about isn't always easy. Plus, I think it gets a little long sometimes. The only reason I still do it is because people in my life who listen, my wife, my daughter, my brother, my dad, have all told me that they need the reminder when they haven't been binging the show. So, okay, it's not that much work, but if an episode takes me a week, the previously part usually is an entire day or two. The other thing I hate about it, though, is that it gives away the big twist sometimes. When I go like, hey everybody, remember Rick Fisher? It sort of loses some punch when this random nobody from the first chapter of Book 2 reappears and catalyzes the whole universe-altering plot of Book 3. I really didn't want to spoil the surprise that the Boner Rock was made of Ajax from the get-go, but I did foreshadow it a little, and I wanted to point it out now that it's been revealed in the story, because, I don't know, I guess it's kind of cool that I did. Here's the actual clip from the show where he crushes it.
Actually, it's funny, you mentioned clothes. When I first got my brain taken out, I could only group naked. He abruptly glanced up from crunching a rock, some tungsten alloy, and accidentally pulverized it more emphatically than he'd intended. It popped really loudly, and he blushed beet red. I pretended not to notice because it somewhat irked me.
Which doesn't really seem to give anything away. Charlie gives it to Jackson a few chapters later, and then they reference it now and then as this symbol of their bond. Fine. But there are actually a few times in the story that foreshadow that he doesn't really have the ability to teak the rock. Once in book 2 when Charlie gives it back to him after her and Cidney fight Foon.
Oh yeah, I borrowed your boner rock. I pulled it off my neck and tossed it to him. He caught it above his head, barely on the tips of his fingers. Figured it was good luck. May actually be the opposite, though.
And again in book 3, he throws it to Cidney, and this one's a little bit more explicit.
I lofted it across the hall, slightly higher than I intended. Cidney had to jump to catch it, but once he did, he held it up to me and nodded before stepping into the elevator. Kind of weird. Usually a telekinetic was a pretty accurate passer, but I guess my brain was all over the place by then.
So yeah, all of that to say, I guess I kind of did the previously part where I combed through old episodes to make my point twice in this chapter, just to take a chance to talk about my own story in the most self-indulgent way possible. What a humble fellow I am. All music and sound effects were sourced from the Epidemic Sound Library. Special thanks to Janet Shasha for creating the cover art for the show. Find her on Instagram at ChiliBeanArt. And thanks again for listening.